Let's talk about COPPA today. You've started your adventure. Now you have a story to tell. But how? This is your show, RV Media Creators. I'm Garrett, and in this community, we will show you how. So let's show the world your story. I know this has been a topic that has been trending quite a bit on YouTube lately, and I wanted to give my thoughts of COPPA and the FTC settlement with YouTube on this channel. If you watched any of our Diary of a Family videos, I suggest you go check those videos out. We go into more depth on this topic. Now, there's a wide range of responses to this settlement, how YouTube is handling it, how FTC is handling, how we're being held liable, and for designating our content as intended for kids. Let's talk about the beginning of COPPA. Where did this all start? Congress passed a law in 1998 that basically provided protections for children 12 and under to keep their privacy online. So the Children's Online Privacy Protection Act is what COPPA, whatever it says, stands for. Now, back in 1998, when they wrote the law, it was basically a way companies, people with websites, had to get parental consent to collect information on their children. That information being name, telephone number, address, date of birth, social security number, information that would be considered personally sensitive information. What this law basically is not prohibiting the collection of this information, but just setting up another layer of protection involving the parents. You know, everybody that helped pass this legislation voted for it. And the legislation, when it was passed originally, was great. Now, they have kind of started to stray a little bit from its original meaning, and in 2013 they updated it to include like advertisers and stuff like that online. I will talk a little bit more about my thoughts about how this regulation affects others a little bit later in the video. Let's jump ahead a few years after they passed this law. YouTube and Google, who are major tech companies in the world, started collecting information on children 12 and under. The problem is that they did not notify the FTC that they were collecting this information, and they did not get parental consent to collect this information. Now, if you have set up a Google account, a YouTube account, you know that there is verbiage asking, what is your age? YouTube and Google do not allow anyone under the age of 13 to sign up for an account. If you're 13 and older, you can sign up. Well, what was happening was that kids under the age of 13 were just either lying about their age, or they were using someone else's account to watch YouTube videos. YouTube and Google knew that there were kids under the age of 13 watching videos, and they knew that they were collecting data on these users. They even went so far as to brag about it to advertisers. They were saying, hey, you know, we're one of the #1 places that kids 6 to 11 watch content. Well, how did they know that? How did they get that information? They, with all their computer learning and all that, they knew that they were collecting information via metadata, via tracking with cookies on your computer, on your phone, what you watch. That's how they tailor ads specifically for you. A lot of it is really kind of creepy. In the media, the tech age, unfortunately, until there's super big reforms that hinder the type of information that is collected, pretty much any kind of company that you deal with online is going to be collecting some kind of information on you. The only option would be to become a hermit, live up in the mountains, and do nothing online anymore, which is getting harder and harder to do. So back to the settlement with YouTube, the FTC accused YouTube of collecting this data, which they were. And YouTube, instead of trying to fight it in court and go to trial and all that, they settled with the FTC. In the settlement, they agreed to let content creators designate their own videos as either intended for kids or not. Now, this is where things kind of get a little iffy, and everybody is freaking out about this portion. What determines intended for kids? Well, we've heard everything from people freaking out that, oh my gosh, this is going to mean all family channels are going to have to be intended for kids because there's a kid in there. Well, that's not necessarily true. People are deleting accounts, deleting channels because of this. There are people that now, they deleted a whole bunch of videos that were supposedly intended for kids, and now they literally went from a revenue stream where they could make videos full time to no income at all. They basically shot themselves and their channel in the foot because they overreacted. One thing I did want to bring up, I'm kind of in the middle of the whole COPPA debate. I feel that it is being kind of blown out of proportion, but I also feel if you don't take it seriously enough, it could come back to bite you. I watched a video on a content creator. He makes videos about Disney, and he went and he called up the FTC's field office and said, is this true? Do I, as a content creator, have to worry about being sued or written a penalty from the FTC for making a video that is directed towards kids? And they said no. I'll link that video in the description. You can go check that video out. A lot of this, I encourage you to do your own research. Really and truly, I could give my opinion. I could show you what I've uncovered. When it comes down to it, as a content creator, it's really your responsibility to do research and find your own conclusion as to if your channel is deemed made for kids or not. What the FTC said to them was, are your videos intended for a kid audience? And if that is a no, if you did not make your video intended for a under 13-year-old to watch, you don't have really much to worry about. Now, YouTube went and did a big sweep and marked a whole bunch of videos as made for kids or not. For us, there was probably about, I want to say 30% of our videos were marked for kids, but a lot of them had either a title that had family in it or one of our kids was on the thumbnail. But if you look at the video, it's a family video. It's intended for a mixed audience. And I hope with this new updated COPPA regulations that they actually sit down and consider mixed content and say, no, it's not intended for kids. Even though a kid might enjoy it, it's not intended for a kid. Really and truly, the only big thing that this all regards to is that if you collect information on kids 12 and under, you need to have parental consent and you need to notify the FTC that you collected this information and got their approval. That's it. That's all this law is really intended to do. What are we doing with our channel? Well, we're going to go through and look at some of our videos, and we're going to look at a couple of factors. For us, we have probably almost 400 videos on our channel that we have to go through. We're going to look at the channel, say, is this video intended for kids? Yes or no? Okay. Most likely not. We probably only have like 4 videos that we actually made intended for kids, and our kids were parts of it. The other thing I'll look at is this video have any views? Does it have any traction whatsoever? If it has only been viewed 13 times in the past year and a half, 2 years, is it worth me even changing the auto designation to not made for kids? Because most likely it's not going to get any more views. It's just going to sit there. We're going to look at the popularity of our video and see if when we go monetized, is this something that is going to possibly bring any revenue in? And then those are the videos we're going to really sit down and look at. Would this be considered intended for kids? And then we'll make that determination from there. Now let's talk about some of the unintended consequences of these updated regulations and a lot of what they're trying to do with COPPA. How it's coming across with YouTube, and they're kind of using them as like the scapegoat. You know, they're basically putting the burden of YouTube and Google collecting this information onto the creators, saying that we're responsible for their actions. Now, some people might argue that that's not the case. The way I look at it is we don't have access to that data they collected. The metadata that Google collects off of somebody watching my video, I can see a little bit of information on analytics, and I'll do a whole video on how to read analytics. It's very interesting stuff. We don't actually see that information. We know a little bit about our audience. We know what time they watch it. We know what videos they like and how long they watch it. So we see information. But when it comes down to seeing metadata and things that YouTube or Google uses to bring personalized ads to a video, we're not seeing that at all. For us, we feel like we're kind of being targeted and left as a scapegoat because YouTube doesn't want to have another fine. So they're like, fine, they're now content owners, video owners, they can make that determination. We take our hands off of it. And that is kind of YouTube's approach to dealing with stuff after the fact. YouTube has a tendency of overreacting to issues and scandals that they find themselves in. How do you move forward? If you're a smaller channel, you really have a great time to be a content creator because you can look at these regulations coming down and you can say, well, I was thinking of doing this, but maybe I won't. Maybe I'll just take my channel this way a little bit. You know, it still is what the heart of your channel is, what your story is, without getting anywhere close to what is being considered a violation of COPPA or having to report that you collected information that you have no way of collecting to the FTC. You know, do your own research, figure out how you can in the future make your content more distinguishable. Next, you know, make your voice heard. Right now, I think you have a few more days until the public comments are shut down. I'll put a link in the description so you can go write your comments to the FTC. Please keep them civil, but tell them your point of view. And I hope that with over the 100,000 people plus that are making comments, that they will be able to see and change the regulations accordingly. Some of the main problems that I have with this law in general is not necessarily the law as it was passed. Because when it was passed in 1998, it was a good law. In 2013, when they decided to expand the law, it was a bunch of unelected bureaucrats adjusting the regulation, aka laws, without a vote of Congress, without a vote of the people. If you're from America and you've done your civics class, Congress passes laws. We elect the people that represent us in Congress. So when people in, let's say, the Federal Trade Commission, the Federal FCC, start making laws or interpreting regulations differently to include other things, expanding the law, I feel that it is out of their purview. It is not the job of an unelected government employee to determine and expand regulation. That is a job of Congress. That is a job of our elected officials to pass those laws. Now, the other issue that I have with how they're interpreting this regulation in COPPA is that they're getting really close to being what is called unconstitutionally vague. Jeremy Johnston from J House Vlog, who is an attorney, he went and scoured this whole law. He tore it apart. He read everything. He understands what is going on. I highly suggest you watch that video. I will link it in the description as well. What he basically is contending is that the way that the FTC is really going about it is not how our government runs. It's not run by unelected bureaucrats. My opinion is that the FTC, the commissioners there, they need to roll back a lot of the regulations. Not all of them, but a lot of them. They need to roll it back and say, Congress, get your act together, pass laws to help protect children's online privacy. It's not our job as commissioners to be determining who collects it, how it's collected. A couple years ago in the previous administration, you know, the FCC was trying to regulate the internet, which was expanding government without passing laws or anything like that. I wanted to read real quick what Jeremy was talking about when he meant constitutional vagueness. It is a doctrine that rests on the 5th and 14th Amendment, which is the Due Process Clause. And basically, it's a constitutional rule that requires criminal law, and it also applies to like civil law. I mean, you're getting penalized for not reporting. So you're having to face a civil penalty for not reporting. Requires these laws to state explicitly and definitively what conduct is punishable. What they're talking about, like with what is called the vagueness doctrine, says is a legal principle which states that a law is unconstitutionally vague if it does not give a person of ordinary intelligence a reasonable opportunity to know what is prohibited. What I feel that this whole law is really kind of gets really close to being hard for a normal person to understand. I look at the regulations, it's just page after page of terminology that you pretty much have to hire a lawyer to help you understand what it actually means. It goes against the Constitution, in my opinion, when it makes these really complicated, overbearing laws that really don't make sense. That's my opinion. I'm more of the kind of down the middle of the road type of person when it comes to this law. Do your own research, stay informed, and make your own decision. And if you're still don't know, feel free to email me. I'll try and help in any way I can. If you still don't understand, consult with a lawyer. Try and find a lawyer that deals with this kind of stuff. Thank you guys so much for watching. And remember, I'm Garrett, and I want to help you tell your story.